Hello cuties, big and little rascals and troublemakers. We are continuing our reading of The Snow Queen by Hans Christian Andersen. This is part 6. In the previous episode, Gerda, with the help of the crow, had just managed to get into the garden of the palace. Today, I am the princess. We only see her for a little bit in this episode, but the other character that we're going to meet, I'm saving for next time. Oh, how Gerda's heart beat with fear and longing. It was just as if she was about to do something wrong, and yet she only wanted to know if this really was little Kai. Oh, it must be him, she thought, picturing to herself his clever eyes and his long hair. She could see his very smile when they used to sit under the rose trees at home. She thought he would be very glad to see her and to hear what a long way she had come to find him, and to hear how sad they all had been at home when he did not come back. Oh, it was joy mingled with fear. They had now reached the stairs where a little lamp was burning on a shelf. There stood the tame sweetheart, twisting and turning her head to look at Gerda, who made the curtsy as grandmother had taught her. "My betrothed has spoken so charmingly to me about you, my little miss," she said. "Your life, vita, as it is called, is most touching. If you will take the lamp, I will go on in front. We shall take the straight road here, and we shall meet no one." "It seems to me that someone is coming behind us," said Gerda, as she fancied something rushed past her, throwing a shadow on the walls. Horses with flowing manes and slender legs, huntsmen, ladies and gentlemen on horseback. "Oh, those are only the dreams," said the crow. "They come to take the thoughts of the noble ladies and gentlemen out hunting. That's a good thing, for you will be able to see them all the better in bed. But don't forget, when you are taken into favour, to show a grateful spirit." "Now, there's no need to talk about that," said the crow from the woods. They came now into the first apartment. It was hung with rose-colored satin embroidered with flowers. Here again the dreams overtook them, but they flitted by so quickly that Gerda could not distinguish them. The apartments became one more beautiful than the other. They were enough to bewilder anybody. They now reached the bedroom. The ceiling was like a giant palm with crystal leaves, and in the middle of the room 2 beds, each like a lily, hung from a golden stem. One was white, and in it lay the princess. The other was red, and there lay he whom Gerda had come to seek, little Kai. She bent aside one of the crimson leaves, and she saw a little brown neck. It was Kai. She called his name aloud and held the lamp close to him. Again the dreams rushed through the room on horseback. He awoke, turned his head, and it was not little Kai. It was only the prince's neck which was like his, but he was young and handsome. The princess peeped out of her lily-white bed and asked what the matter was. Then Gerda started crying and told them all her story and what the crows had done to help her. "You poor little thing," said the prince and the princess, and they praised the crows and said that they were not at all angry with them, but they must not do it again. Then they gave them a reward. "Would you like your liberty?" said the princess. "Or would you prefer permanent posts about the court as court crows with prerequisites from the kitchen. Both crows curtsied and begged for the permanent posts, for they thought of their old age and said it was so good to have something for the old man, as they called it. The prince got up and allowed Gerda to sleep in his bed, and he could not have done more. She folded her little hands and thought how good the people and the animals are. Then she shut her eyes and fell asleep. All the dreams came flying back again. This time they looked like angels, and they were dragging a little sledge with Kai sitting on it, and he nodded. But it was only a dream, so it all vanished when she awoke. Next day she was dressed in silk and velvet from head to foot. They asked her to stay at the palace and have a good time, but she only begged them to give her a little carriage and a horse and a little pair of boots, so that she might drive out into the wide world to look for Kai. They gave her a pair of boots and a muff. She was beautifully dressed, and when she was ready to start, there before the door stood a new chariot of pure gold. The princess and the princess's coat of arms were emblazoned on it and shone like a star. Coachman, footman, and outrider, for there was even an outrider, all wore golden crowns. The prince and princess themselves helped her into the carriage and wished her joy. The wood crow, who was now married, accompanied her for the first 3 miles. He sat beside Gerda, for he could not ride with his back to the horses. The other crow stood at the door and flapped her wings. She did not go with them, for she suffered from headache, since she had become a kitchen pensioner, the consequences of eating too much. The chariot was stored with sugar biscuits, and there were fruit and ginger nuts under the seat. "Goodbye! Goodbye!" cried the prince and princess. Little Gerda wept, and the crow wept too. At the end of the first few miles, the crow said goodbye, and this was the hardest parting of all. It flew up into a tree and flapped its big black wings as long as it could see the chariot, which shone like the brightest sunshine. Fifth story, The Little Robber Girl. They drove on through a dark wood where the chariot lighted up the way and blinded the robbers by its glare. It was more than they could bear. "It is gold! It is gold!" they cried, and darting forward, seized the horses and killed the postilions, the coachman and footmen. Then they dragged little Gerda out of the carriage. "She's fat and she's pretty. She has been fattened on nuts," said the old robber woman, who had a long beard and eyebrows that hung down over her eyes. "She's as good as a fat lamb. Oh, how nice she will taste!" She drew out her sharp knife as she said this. It glittered horribly. "Ah!" screamed the old woman at the same moment, for her little daughter had come up behind her and she was biting her ear. She hung on her back as wild and as savage a little animal as you could wish to find. "You bad, wicked child!" said her mother, but she was prevented from killing Gerda on this occasion. "She shall play with me," said the little robber girl. "She shall give me her muff and her pretty dress, and she shall sleep in my bed." Then she bit her mother again and made her dance. All the robbers laughed and said, "Look at her dancing with her cub." "I want to get into the carriage," said the little robber girl, and she always had her own way because she was so spoiled and stubborn. She and Gerda got into the carriage, and then they drove over the stubble and the stones, further and further into the wood. This is the end of today's episode. Goodbye for now, and good luck.